The soft hum of the Star Whisper's engines provided a gentle lullaby as Zara, Nightingale, settled into her chair for another quiet night shift in the communications bay. Her auburn hair was pulled back in a messy bun, and her green eyes reflected the soft glow of multiple screens displaying various frequency channels. As the ship's senior communications specialist, she had grown accustomed to the peaceful solitude of deep space monitoring. Outside the viewport, the stars painted their eternal dance across the velvet darkness. The research vessel had been stationed at the edge of explored space for 6 months now, serving as humanity's listening post for new civilizations and potential first contact scenarios. Most nights brought nothing more than cosmic background, radiation, and the occasional automated beacon from distant trading vessels. Zara sipped her lavender tea and adjusted her headset, running through the standard monitoring protocols. She had always been drawn to languages and communication, earning advanced degrees in xenolinguistics before joining the Terran Exploration Initiative. There was something magical about the possibility of being the first human to hear an alien voice, to bridge the gap between species with nothing more than patience and understanding. The chronometer showed 3:42 ship time when the first signal broke through the static. Zara sat up straighter, her fingers dancing across the control panel to isolate the transmission. The signal was weak and fragmented, but unmistakably artificial. Her heart began to race with the familiar thrill of discovery. "Computer, begin recording an analysis of incoming transmission on frequency 847.3, she whispered, not wanting to wake the skeleton night crew. The voice that emerged from the speakers was unlike anything in the galactic communication database. It was melodious, almost musical, with tonal qualities that reminded her of wind chimes in a gentle breeze. But beneath the beauty of the alien language, Zara could hear something that made her chest tighten with emotion desperation. She worked through the night, her expertise in pattern recognition and linguistic analysis coming alive as she fed the signal through various translation matrices. The Universal Communication Protocol had established certain mathematical and conceptual frameworks that most intelligent species seemed to grasp, and slowly words began to emerge from the alien song. "Please, anyone who receives this, we are the Viridians of the garden world Luminara, ... double quotes." Zara's breath caught as the translation became clearer. She leaned forward, adjusting parameters to capture every nuance of the message. Our world, beautiful beyond description, under attack by those who call themselves the Shadowkin Empire. They come not to conquer, but to consume. Our cities burn, our gardens wither under their shadow ships. We are a peaceful people. We have no weapons, no armies. Only love for growing things and harmony with our world. Tears began to well in Zara's eyes as she continued translating. The voice belonged to someone young, female by the tonal patterns, and the fear in her words transcended language barriers. We have heard whispers in the void of a species called humans, beings who show compassion to strangers and fight for those who cannot fight for themselves. If this message reaches you, we beg not for warriors or weapons, but for sanctuary for our children. We offer all that we are. Our knowledge of healing plants, our art, our songs ... please ... double quotes. The signal dissolved into static, but Zara could see it was set to repeat every 37 minutes. She sat back in her chair, overwhelmed by the weight of what she had just heard. Somewhere in the vast darkness of space, an entire peaceful civilization was crying out for help, and their message had found its way to her. She immediately began compiling a comprehensive report, her fingers flying over the keyboard as she documented every detail of the transmission. The Viridians, from what she could gather, were a highly advanced but non-aggressive species. Their technology seemed focused on biology and environmental harmony rather than warfare. The attackers, this Shadowkin Empire, were described in terms that made them sound like a plague of locusts, consuming everything in their path. As she worked, Zara found herself thinking about the young Viridian woman who had recorded the message. What was her name? Was she still alive? Did she have family, loved ones, dreams that were being crushed under the shadow of invasion? When dawn shift arrived, Zara had prepared a detailed linguistic analysis, cultural assessment, and preliminary recommendation for humanitarian intervention. She uploaded everything to the priority communication array, knowing it would reach Earth Command within hours through the quantum relay network. Captain Harrison, the Star Whisper's commanding officer, arrived in the communications bay with coffee and a concerned expression. "Nightingale, I heard you've been busy. What do we have?" Zara played the original signal, watching as the captain's weathered face grew solemn. She had worked with Harrison for 3 years and respected his judgment immensely. He was a former merchant marine who had seen enough of the galaxy to understand that sometimes the right thing to do wasn't the easy thing. "Sir, they're not asking for military intervention," Zara emphasized, her voice hoarse from the long night. "They want sanctuary, protection for their non-combatants." This is exactly the kind of situation the humanitarian aid protocol was designed for. Harrison nodded thoughtfully. "And your assessment of the threat?" "The Shadowkin Empire appears to be expansionist and ruthless. If the Viridians' description is accurate, they don't just conquer, they completely strip worlds of resources and life. It's ecological genocide." As if summoned by their conversation, a priority message appeared on the main communication screen. Earth Command had responded faster than usual, and the message was marked for immediate action. "Star Whisper, prepare to receive incoming personnel transport. Humanitarian coordinator en route with full authorization for refugee assistance mission. Maintain monitoring of Viridian signals and prepare detailed briefings for immediate review. This is now classified as Operation Sanctuary. End transmission." Zara felt a flutter of nervous excitement in her stomach. In just a few hours, her quiet night shift discovery had become a major humanitarian operation. More importantly, somewhere in the darkness between the stars, there was still hope for the Viridians. As she prepared to brief the incoming coordinator, Zara found herself wondering what kind of person would volunteer to lead such a dangerous and uncertain mission. Little did she know that the answer to that question would change her life in ways she never could have imagined. Marcus Sterling stepped off the transport shuttle with the easy confidence of someone who had spent half his life navigating between stars and the other half navigating between cultures. At 34, he carried himself with the relaxed posture of a former merchant captain, though his eyes held the focused intensity of someone who had found a higher purpose. His dark hair was slightly tousled from the journey, and he wore the practical uniform of the Humanitarian Aid Coalition, an organization he had helped establish after leaving his family's trading business. As he made his way through the Star Whisper's corridors, Marcus couldn't help but appreciate the research vessel's clean lines and purposeful design. It was a far cry from the cargo haulers and merchant ships he had commanded for over a decade, but there was something appealing about its focus on discovery rather than profit. "Coordinator Sterling?" A soft voice called from behind him. Marcus turned and felt his breath catch slightly. The woman approaching him had striking green eyes that seemed to hold depths of intelligence and compassion. Framed by auburn hair, they caught the corridor lighting like burnished copper. She wore the blue uniform of a communications specialist, and there was something in her posture that suggested both professionalism and barely contained excitement. "You must be Zara Nightingale," Marcus said, extending his hand with a warm smile. "I read your preliminary report during the journey. Exceptional work. The linguistic analysis alone is going to save us weeks of preparation time." Zara felt a small electric thrill as their hands touched, surprised by the calluses on his palms that spoke of hands-on work despite his coordinator title. Thank you, sir. I have the full briefing materials ready, and we've continued monitoring the Viridian signals. The situation seems to be deteriorating rapidly. Please, just Marcus, he said, his smile reaching his eyes in a way that made Zara's heart skip slightly. And I'd like to hear everything, not just the official report, but your impressions, your instincts. In my experience, the person who makes first contact often understands nuances that don't make it into formal documents. As they walked toward the conference room, Zara found herself studying Marcus from the corner of her eye. She had expected a typical bureaucrat or military officer, someone focused on protocols and procedures. Instead, she found herself walking beside someone who radiated genuine warmth and curiosity. I have to ask, Ira said as they reached the briefing room. What made you leave merchant trading for humanitarian work? Your file shows you were quite successful with Sterling Interstellar. Marcus paused at the door, his expression growing more serious. 3 years ago, I was running supply routes to the outer colonies when we received a distress call from a mining station. Pirates had hit them hard, killed most of the adults, left dozens of children stranded with limited life support. He looked out the viewport at the stars. By the time official rescue ships could be dispatched, it would have been too late. So we diverted our entire convoy, loaded those kids onto cargo haulers, and got them to safety. That must have cost you significantly, Zara observed, touched by the quiet emotion in his voice. Everything, actually, Marcus laughed, but not with bitterness. The cargo was time-sensitive, the contracts were broken, and my family's business partners weren't pleased. But seeing those children reunited with relatives, watching them laugh again after such trauma, I realized I had been looking for profit in all the wrong places. Zara felt something warm bloom in her chest as she watched this man who had given up financial success to save strangers. And now you coordinate rescue operations across the galaxy? Now I coordinate hope, Marcus corrected gently. Sometimes that looks like rescue operations. Sometimes it's refugee resettlement. Sometimes it's just making sure someone's voice is heard when they're crying out in the darkness. They entered the briefing room where Zara had prepared detailed holographic displays of the Viridian, communications, star charts, and cultural analysis. As she began her presentation, Marcus found himself impressed not just by her thoroughness, but by the obvious care she had put into understanding the Viridians as people rather than just subjects of study. The repeated messages show increasing urgency, Zara explained, her voice taking on a professional tone, even as Marcus noticed the way her eyes sparkled with passion for her work. But what's remarkable is that even as their situation grows more desperate, the Viridians continue to emphasize what they can offer rather than just what they need. Listen to this segment from their latest transmission. The melodious alien voice filled the room, and even without translation, the emotional weight was palpable. Marcus watched Zara as she listened, seeing the way she unconsciously leaned forward, her expression reflecting deep empathy. They're describing their healing gardens, Zara translated softly. Plants that can purify toxins from soil, flowers that produce medicines, trees that actually improve air quality on whatever world they're planted. Even facing extinction, they're thinking about how they can help others. How many Viridians are we talking about? Marcus asked, though he found himself studying Zara's profile as much as the data she was presenting. Population estimates from their transmissions suggest around 2 million on the primary world, with smaller colonies on 3 moons. But here's the critical detail. They're not asking us to evacuate everyone. They specifically mention wanting to save the young ones and the life keepers. I believe they're talking about their children and the individuals who maintain their biological knowledge. Marcus stood and moved closer to the holographic display, his shoulder almost brushing Zara's as he examined the stellar cartography. She caught a hint of his cologne, something clean and masculine, with notes of cedar, and found herself momentarily distracted. The logistics are challenging, Marcus mused, apparently oblivious to her momentary fluster. The Viridian system is in disputed space. The Shadowkin have a significant military presence, and we be operating without official government backing. But ... He turned to face her, and Zara was struck by the determination in his dark eyes. The Humanitarian Aid Coalition has resources, and more importantly, we have volunteers who specialize in exactly this kind of operation. You're really going to do it? Zara breathed, feeling a surge of admiration. You're going to try to save them. We're going to do it, Marcus corrected, his voice warm. That is, if you're willing to be our primary communications liaison. I've read about your work with first contact protocols, and frankly, you understand the Viridians better than anyone else in known space right now. Zara felt her heart race at the invitation. Working closely with Marcus on a rescue mission that could save thousands of innocent lives? It was exactly the kind of meaningful work she had always dreamed of, and the company would be. She glanced at Marcus's strong profile as he studied the star charts. Definitely not unwelcome. I accept, she said without hesitation. But I have one condition. Marcus raised an eyebrow with an amused smile. Already making demands? I like that. What's your condition? I want to be in the first wave of contact. When we reach the Viridian system, I want to be on the ship that makes initial communication. I feel responsible for them somehow. Like their message was meant to find me? Marcus studied her face, seeing the fierce determination there, mixed with something softer, a genuine caring that he found incredibly attractive. Done, but I have a condition of my own, which is dinner tonight. We'll be working closely together for the next several weeks, possibly months. I'd like to get to know the woman behind the brilliant linguistics expert. His smile was warm and slightly uncertain, as if he wasn't sure how she would respond to the personal invitation. Zara felt heat bloom in her cheeks, but met his eyes steadily. I'd like that. Though I should warn you, ship's galley food isn't exactly romantic. Who said anything about romantic? Marcus asked with mock innocence, though his eyes were definitely suggesting otherwise. This is purely professional relationship building. Of course, Zara agreed, unable to suppress her smile. Purely professional. As they continued planning the rescue operation, both found themselves stealing glances at each other, the air between them charged with possibility. Neither had expected to find personal connection in the midst of an interstellar humanitarian crisis. But the universe, it seemed, had its own plans for bringing hearts together across the vast darkness between the stars. Captain Naya. Voss gripped the controls of the Celestial Dawn as the rescue fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Viridian system. Her short-cropped platinum hair gleamed under the cockpit lights, and her ice-blue eyes reflected the tactical displays showing dozens of ships emerging from the void. At 29, she had earned her reputation as one of the best civilian pilots in the Outer Rim, specializing in high-risk evacuation operations where steady nerves and creative flying were the difference between life and death. Fleet Command, this is Celestial Dawn. She spoke into her headset, her voice calm despite the tension knotting her shoulders. All vessels have successfully translated to normal space. Beginning system reconnaissance. Behind her in the passenger compartment, Marcus. Sterling unbuckled from his acceleration couch and moved to the observation deck where Zara. Nightingale was already monitoring communication frequencies. The past 3 weeks of journey preparation had brought them closer together, their professional partnership deepening into something neither had expected to find among the night stars. Any word from the Viridians? Marcus asked, placing a gentle hand on Zara's shoulder as she worked. The simple touch sent warmth through both of them, a connection that had grown stronger with each passing day. They're still transmitting, but the signals are much weaker, Zara replied, worry evident in her voice. I'm detecting multiple sources now. They've scattered to different locations across their world. Some of the messages ... double quotes. Her fingers tightening on the console. Some of them are goodbye messages, Marcus. They're leaving final words for loved ones. Through the viewports, they could see the blue-green jewel of Luminara, the Viridian homeworld. Even from this distance, it was breathtakingly beautiful, with swirling cloud formations and continents that seemed to shimmer with an almost ethereal light. But darker shapes moved between the planet and its 3 moons, the angular, predatory silhouettes of Shadowkin vessels. "My God," whispered Naya from the pilot's seat, her usual composure cracking as she enhanced the visual feed. "Look what they're doing to it. Where once there had been verdant forests and crystal cities, dark scars now marked the planet's surface. The Shadowkin weren't just conquering, they were strip-mining the world, harvesting everything of value, while leaving poisoned wastelands behind. It was systematic destruction on a scale that made even hardened rescue veterans like Naya feel sick. "Communications coming in," announced Lieutenant Torres from the navigation station. "It's on the Viridian frequency, but the translator is having trouble with the dialect." Zara immediately plugged in her specialized equipment. "Patch it through to me." The melodious alien voice that emerged was different from the previous transmissions, deeper, older, touched with an authority that spoke of leadership even in desperation. "Beings of the stars," Zara translated as the voice continued. "We are Keeper Thane of the Fifth Grove. If you are the humans who answered our call, know that we are beyond gratitude. Our scouts report ships of unknown design approaching. We pray you are friends, not new predators." Marcus activated the fleet's primary communication array. "Keeper Thane, this is Marcus Sterling of the Terran Humanitarian Coalition. We received your distress calls and have come to offer sanctuary to your people. We are not warriors, but healers and protectors. How can we help?" The response came quickly, filled with such relief that it transcended language barriers. "Marcus Sterling, your name will be sung in our memory gardens for 1,000 seasons. We have prepared the young ones and the life keepers as requested, but the shadow ones hunt us even now. Their harvest ships draw closer to our final refuges." From her pilot's position, Naya studied the tactical display with growing concern. "Marcus, we've got problems. I'm reading at least 30 Shadowkin vessels in system, and they're moving to intercept us. These aren't just cargo ships, some of those are serious military hardware." Marcus felt Zara tense beside him, but when he looked at her, he saw determination rather than fear in her green eyes. Over their weeks together, he had come to admire not just her intelligence and compassion, but her courage in the face of the unknown. "What's our play, Captain Voss?" Marcus asked, trusting the pilot's expertise. Naya's lips curved in a smile that was part confidence, part reckless bravery. "We do what we do best. We get creative. The Shadowkin are expecting either a military confrontation or easy prey. They're not expecting a humanitarian fleet that thinks like smugglers and pirates." She activated the fleet-wide communication system. "All vessels, this is Flight Leader. Initiating Plan Shepherd. Cargo haulers and medical ships, begin scatter pattern Alpha. Escort vessels, you're our wolves, make some noise and keep their attention. Specialized evacuation craft, follow Celestial Dawn down to the surface. Remember, people, we're not here to fight. We're here to save lives." As the rescue fleet broke formation and scattered across the system, Naya pushed the Celestial Dawn into a steep dive toward Luminara's atmosphere. The ship shuddered as they hit the outer layers of the planet's envelope, but her skillful piloting kept them on course toward the coordinates Keeper Thane had provided. "Zara, I need you to maintain contact with the Viridians," Marcus said, securing himself as the ship bucked through atmospheric turbulence. "Tell them where and when to bring their evacuees." "Naya, how long do we have before the Shadow can respond?" "Minutes, maybe less," Naya replied, her hands dancing over the controls as she navigated through a maze of Floating debris, the remains of what had once been a magnificent orbital city. Those military ships are fast, and they're not going to just let us waltz in and rescue their future slaves. They broke through the cloud layer, and the full scope of the Shadowkin devastation became visible, where the Viridians had built in harmony with nature, creating cities that looked like they had grown rather than been constructed. Now only ruins remained. But in the distance, Naya could see patches of green areas where the life-loving Viridians had managed to preserve fragments of their world. There, Zara pointed toward a cluster of crystalline structures nestled in what appeared to be a vast botanical garden. That's where the signals are strongest. Keeper Thane said they've gathered the evacuees in the Memorial Grove. As Naya brought the ship down in the designated landing zone, they got their first direct look at the Viridians. They were tall and graceful, with an almost ethereal quality that reminded Marcus of ancient descriptions of forest spirits. Their skin had a subtle green tint that seemed to shift and change like sunlight through leaves, and their large, expressive eyes held depths of wisdom and sadness. But it was the children that broke everyone's hearts. Small Viridian youngsters clung to their caretakers, their eyes wide with fear and confusion. They carried little bundles of possessions, not toys or clothes, but small plants and seedlings that represented their connection to their dying world. Keeper Thane approached the ship as the cargo bay doors opened. He was elderly, even by Viridian standards, his movements deliberate and dignified despite the circumstances. When he spoke, his voice carried the musical quality of his species, but with an undertone of profound grief. "Marcus Sterling," he said in carefully, "pronounced galactic standard. You have traveled far to answer the cries of strangers. This kindness will not be forgotten." Marcus stepped forward, Zara close beside him, and the moment felt charged with significance. "Keeper Thane, we're honored to help. How many are ready for evacuation?" 300 life keepers and nearly 2,000 young ones from this grove alone, Thane replied. Other groups wait at the Eastern Sanctuary and the Seed Vaults. But the Shadow Dash ones ... He looked up at the sky where dark shapes were beginning to appear through the clouds. "They come. We'll get everyone out," Marcus promised, though he could hear the whine of approaching Shadowkin aircraft. "Naya, how long do we need?" 10 minutes minimum for the first group," the pilot called back, already beginning loading procedures. "But those fighters will be here in 3. It was Zara who stepped forward with the solution. "Keeper Thane, can your people do something to help mask our signature? Some kind of natural camouflage or interference?" The elderly Viridian's eyes widened with understanding. "The Spore Singers." "Yes, young human, we can call them." He began singing in a language that predated galactic standard, a haunting melody that seemed to make the very air shimmer. Within moments, the surrounding plants began releasing clouds of luminescent pollen that sparkled in the air like stardust. The bioluminescent display was beautiful, but more importantly, it created a natural interference pattern that would confuse enemy sensors. "Brilliant," Naya breathed, watching as her ship's stealth systems became exponentially more effective. "We might actually pull this off." As the first group of Viridian evacuees boarded the Celestial Dawn, Marcus found himself working alongside Zara to coordinate the loading process. Their partnership had become seamless, each anticipating the other's needs and thoughts. In quiet moments between the chaos, their eyes would meet, and the connection between them deepened with shared purpose and mutual admiration. The rescue operation continued for hours, with shuttle runs between the surface and the larger hospital ships waiting in orbit. Each trip brought more Viridian families to safety, but also increased the risk as Shadowkin forces converged on their location. It was during the final evacuation run that everything went wrong. Shadowkin fighters broke through the bioluminescent camouflage, their weapons tearing through the Memorial Grove and forcing the rescue ships to scatter. Naya found herself flying through a maze of energy blasts and debris, her skills pushed to their absolute limit. "We've got wounded," called the medical officer as the ship shook from a near miss. "3 Viridian children and 1 of our crew." Marcus made a decision that would haunt him for weeks afterward. "Naya, get us out of here. We can't save anyone if we're destroyed." "But there are still evacuees down there," Zara protested, tears streaming down her face as she watched the grove burning below them. "And we'll come back for them," Marcus promised, pulling her close as the ship escaped the atmosphere. "This isn't over, Zara. We'll find another way." As the celestial dawn rejoined the rescue fleet in the safety of hyperspace, carrying nearly 8,000 Viridian refugees to safety, everyone aboard was quiet. They had saved thousands of lives, but they had also been forced to leave thousands more behind. The Shadowkin had made it clear that this was a war, not just a rescue operation. Marcus stood with Zara on the observation deck, holding her as she grieved for the Viridians they couldn't save. "We did everything we could," he whispered into her hair. "It's not enough," she replied, her voice thick with emotion. "Those children, those families. They trusted us to save them all." "Then we'll find a way to go back," Marcus said firmly. "We'll find a way to stop the Shadowkin permanently. But right now, we need to focus on the ones we did save, and we need to give them hope for a future." Behind them, Naya was quietly coordinating with the medical ships, her own heart heavy with the weight of impossible choices. But as she watched a young Viridian child smile at one of the human medics, she felt a spark of something that had been missing from her life purpose beyond just flying ships and making money. The rescue fleet set course for the outer rim, carrying their precious cargo toward an uncertain but hopeful future. Love had brought them together across the stars, and love would sustain them through whatever challenges lay ahead. But none of them knew that their rescue mission had just set in motion events that would reshape the balance of power across the galaxy, and that their greatest tests, both as individuals and as partners, were still to come.